Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to another Empires and Puzzles video. And in this video we're going to be looking at the 4th or 5th soul exchange. I forget which one it is now. If you're getting frustrated with Empires and Puzzles, let me just say that Gemstone Legends probably has the things you're looking for. They have a mercy system that guarantees a legendary hero after a certain amount of pulls, and we're not just talking about a weak legendary hero from a pre-selected list. They have a wish list that you can put any hero in the game on to boost your chances of pulling that specific hero. They take into account player feedback, and many of the changes that have gone live in the game were based on player feedback or were player suggestions to begin with. They're even going to give you a free $50 starter bonus just for downloading from one of the links in the description. If the earlier stuff somehow wasn't enough, you can be a hero in wars even just using rare heroes only. They have tons of events that allow you to earn free 10 pulls and other very usable high value stuff. Gemstone Legends really has a lot going for it, so come check it out if you're curious to see why tens of thousands of people have left Empires and Puzzles to come play. Apologies for the delay in this. There's a lot of people that just make a decision right away anyways, but I know there are some people who are looking for this, so this will still give you hopefully plenty of time to decide. For the first time, I will not be doing a blind reveal because the attempts at guessing what heroes are going to be featured in this have become perfectly accurate, so the information starts floating around to begin with, and whether I try to or not, I've already seen who the heroes are, so it's a little disappointing that has been taken out of it. It doesn't feel like we really need to see it in advance. I'm not, mad at anyone for doing that. Just saying, sometimes a little patience is worth just as much. But I understand some people want more time to think about it, etc., etc. But it took a little bit of the fun out of it, I would say. All right, so as usual, we've got 10, 15, and 20 hero tiers. We'll start at the bottom. Bottom meaning 10, which is the top of the screen, but you get what I mean. And we'll work our way through. Here we go. Non-costume. Therese. Someone in our alliance made the mistake of thinking that it was the costume version and took her, and then only realized afterwards, oh, no costume. So make sure you double check all those things beforehand. You can see on the left side there's no costume or like the masquerade symbol. All right, so slow hero, pretty weak damage, very weak heal by today's standards, considering it is a heal over turn and not boosted health. 30% defense doesn't make a huge difference, but it's there. It also doesn't make sense with the way that she works. So for a while, ever since she came out, actually, I've been somewhat critical of her design, because why does she make you more survivable, but her skill works when you die? It doesn't really make sense. And when you come back, you're way too weak. 500 defense. Yeah. So I can't think of a single situation where I would recommend this hero to anyone, to be honest. All right, Musashi, very dated. Look at the stats. Under 1250 HP with under 680 defense. That's wild. 332 to the target and minor to nearby. If he was 332 to the target and nearby, that would be something, but this is from a time long ago when heroes weren't totally insane. Now we have 410 to target and nearby with a bunch of other stuff going on. Looking at modern heroes, caster heals 50% of dealt normal damage, not even special skill damage. And it's a pretty good element link, but I can't recommend this hero. It's possible. I mean, there are people that are in different positions than I am, so you have to keep in mind when you're deciding what hero you're going to take. Are you facing meta defense teams, or are you, a very cheap to play or free to play account, and you just don't face as many of the top heroes? Like perhaps frequently in war, you're facing defense teams or in raids that have 4-star heroes on defense. If that's the case, there's a lot more utility here, but so it's up to you to determine what position you're at in the game. He's a decent damage dealer. You would really want to have some elemental defense down in yellow, or some defense down at least at the same speed in the same color, ideally, if you're going to go this way, but I can't strongly recommend this hero either. All right, Kingston, 2 years newer. 445 to the target. We've got heroes at very fast speed dealing that. But the best thing about Kingston, and one reason why I could potentially recommend him, is because the target and nearby enemies get minus 31% defense or attack, and a further 4% decrease every time they are hit during 4 turns. I think this tops out at minus 55% attack. And you get a good element link with 4% mana generation for 4 turns. Stats, better than Musashi, but pretty dated as well. But if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I used to love this hero not even that long ago. I've had him since he came out, which is crazy. Had him since he came out, and used to use him a lot with Fog and Toxicandra. That was one of my favorite teams ever. I think I used him even before that. I don't remember what the team was at the time. But it's fantastic because at least then you used to be able to kill a hero with those two together. Elemental defense down, followed by Kingston. And if you didn't, it was very close. And if you did, you still left the attack down on the neighboring heroes, which you could then dump tiles into, knowing they're going to hit you for a lot less. So having a scaling attack down like that really does allow you to treat certain heroes as tile dumps, which is a big luxury, because not often do you get to do that without serious repercussions. So again, this is a hero that I can't recommend for meta battles because he just doesn't put out enough damage anymore. I had to retire that team because it wasn't killing anymore. So keep that in mind. He's also got this resist against burn, which is pretty nice. Doesn't happen all the time that you get to utilize that, but it's still nice. All right, Aries without costume. Can't recommend Aries unless you're purely looking for like a Titan hero and you've already got a well-developed roster. Even still, because it's only caster nearby, you get plus 54% attack, plus 36% critical, better of a heal than Marie, and decent element link. So maybe that's good. Still not the best Titan hero because it's only nearby allies. Yeah, so can't really recommend this guy. Stats are quite low as well. Sandra, whatever you do not take her. I feel comfortable saying that by today's standards, she's terrible. 310% damage to the target at fast speed is incredibly weak, and you only have a 42% chance to deal additional hits up to 3 times, and those are half damage, so those are 155. Which is not that good, and the small amount of mana gained, she's just bad. Even the costume, which is fairly recent, is bad. The amount of times that I almost never get a second hit. It's just 1 hit. So, yeah, I cannot recommend her at all, unfortunately. All right, now we're getting into the 15 tier. We've got costume Sartana. This could be a good one for a lot of people because there's probably a lot of people that don't have a ton of roster options, do have this hero maxed, and not only do you get a very nice costume bonus, but you get extra utility around a hero you already have, so no 4-star Ascension items required, which is good. So you lose the poison damage, and you're just doing a strong snipe. She's also a fighter, which means she has the superior revive if you take her up to 20. So snipers still have utility in this game. I don't want to keep saying it as a caveat, but you have to remember this depends on what you need in your roster, what level you're fighting at in terms of what you can get away with. But I think this is going to be a good choice for a lot of people, especially at the 15 tier. Okay, Drake again, no costume, so 270 to the target and nearby, only 3 turns of blind, and a much weaker element link. It's hard for me to recommend him. I remember when he was very popular on flanks. Yeah, the damage is just not holding up. The stats are really not holding up. And the blind is not making a huge difference. The costume is certainly better, but they're not giving you the costume here. So for 15, I cannot recommend this for 15. I think this should have been at 10, if anything. Better damage than Musashi, which is maybe why they bumped it up, but not great. Okay, good old Albie. Again, no costume, so 33% chance to get revived with 23% HP. Very, very weak stats. Oh, excuse me. All allies regenerate 612 HP over 4 turns, moderate amount of mana over 4 turns, and a pretty good element link. The stats are very weak. If you don't have a reviver, I could see why somebody would want to take this hero. However, with a roster that has multiple revivers, I don't ever play revivers unless it's rush defense, and the meta has moved away from the revive anyways. And if anyone, it's going to be Mother North, who has the 50 or 55% chance to revive, or some of the other revive heroes that have come along since then. I just think it's not a good strategy to have a team that's built around, especially a slow hero, having a 1 in 3 chance of reviving heroes that are dead. So he's only doing something, aside from the mana gain, once a hero has died. And I just don't like playing that way, because you use him and you don't revive, and then you have to charge him up with, potentially 12 tiles again. And it's just not a good strategy for me. So personally, I would not recommend this. If it was the costume, that might be a different story, but it isn't. So, all right, Elizabeth had a moment in time. Not anymore. Decent stats compared to the others. 175 to all enemies at average speed. Spider Fiend, which damages with 43%, absorbs 28% health, which pretty much every healer is healing 28% health these days, unless it's heal over turn. So that's it does steal the health from you, but it's sort of insignificant in terms of the fiends. They can cause problems because of the decreased mana generation. She was a good tank for a while, but I wouldn't recommend her because tanks have moved away from not only her, but from red in general. And her damage is just too weak on offense. So I think there are potentially better options. Perhaps this is the right choice for someone. It's hard for me to consider all the different situations where that might be true, or different situations where that could be true for someone, but it's hard to recommend her based on the things that I just mentioned. All right, Leapis without costume again. 410 to the target, minor damage to nearby, and then he gets minus 20% defense. His defense is already unbelievably small, and his HP is under 1200, so the damage used to be good, which made up for his low stats, but it's still decent, especially if you have some elemental defense down or regular defense down, but he's so incredibly squishy that you're just you're taking a risk by even bringing him on the team at all. So once again, it's hard for me to recommend many of these heroes, but that's a tough one just because he's so incredibly weak, and 20% lower, like his defense is already awful. There's 3-star heroes with limit breaks that have significantly more defense. Okay, now we're into the 20s. Graphina, very powerful if you can charge her, and that's the main thing. So the first level is decreased attack, decreased defense, 159 poison over 3 turns. Largely insignificant. There have been times I used to use her in the past, but I moved away from it. The difficult thing is, as a charge hero, you can't speed her up as easily with the Znulfod type give a hero X% mana, because she's treated as charging in 2 independent 6-tile charges. So when she gets 20%, it's not 20% of 12, it's 20% of 6, which I believe would be half as much. She can work in certain situations. The second charge is very nice. Scaling attack boost for 6 turns. Really strong. This was buffed at one point, if I remember correctly. Scaling defense boost starting at 54. And a sizable heal for 6 turns. You're probably looking at 250 to 300 per turn, something like that. So it's strong. She's got a passive that deals damage as well, 50 or 100% chance depending on whether you're at ×1 or ×2. But yeah, very situational. It's tough that they've included much stronger heroes in the past, and this one is a bit softer all around. So that's what I can say about her. Topaz, one of the better choices here. A good ninja hero. It's nice to have the charge because you can use the different levels depending on how many tiles you have. All the way at her slowest charge, she's still doing only 390 to all, which is a little bit on the weaker side now. Also, you have to get to the third charge for her to even destroy the minions of all the targets. Like someone like Grimble destroys just all minions. And she will only hit 1, 3, or finally all 5 targets. So you can't rely on her in the same way you can with him in terms of generating mana, but she's much better as a damage dealer. So stats, the ninjas typically have low defense like this. HP is pretty good. Attack is pretty good. So I still use her. If you watch my war videos with Gazelle and Costume Leonidas, so 9 tiles with the troops that I have, and I can kill a side. It's not going to work in rush attack because of the charge system, so it's for wars outside of that. The mana gained is sort of a bonus. It's not something I rely on or build a team around. All right, Guan Yu. So another average speed hero. Very strong. So when he came out, people were pretty excited because 390 to the target and nearby is huge damage. And you can even utilize that with someone like Almer, the 4-star elemental defense down hero. So you're doing some big damage following that up, especially if you have an attack boost or something like that. The rest of his skill... Well, before we get to that, average is getting pushed out of the meta just because for the longest time it's been very speed focused, and it can be hard to get that third match. Typically it's not too hard to get 2 matches, but getting that third match can be quite tough. And fast speed heroes, if you can get a 4 match and a 3 match with the right troops, then you can fire them as well. So that kind of moves them to this pseudo very fast speed, whereas average is distinctly stuck at 9 tiles even with the right troop, or 10 tiles if you don't have the right troop. So it can be tough to work with, I'll just say that much. But again, it depends on what level you're fighting at and all that kind of stuff again. So he's a paladin, which is nice. Bumps up his slightly lower defense, or has the chance to at least. Damage bypasses target's minions. Target and nearby enemies get minus 25% defense and a further minus 3% decrease for each minion owned by enemies. So that's all enemies total. Up to minus 70%. So that's what people were really excited about. The bypass is nice because you can use him as a kill shot and you can just ignore the minion HP if he has enough to kill. Typically, minions count as like boosted HP, but this is kind of like a hero that's like ignores boosted HP when dealing damage. So he's one of the stronger choices as well. Just keep in mind his limitations and that you will need to have the right team for him to really maximize that damage. All right, one of the better choices here as well, Guardian Kong and a costume. The only costume in this lineup, I believe, which is an interesting choice. That's why he's at 20. Okay, so much, much, much better than the original version, like night and day better. Deals 300% damage to all enemies. So average speed again, but now you have a costume bonus to work with 5% mana, so you can get away with not even needing a level 23 troop. I think you could use a level 11 troop and still charge him in 9 tiles, which is a big advantage. Very low defense as well. You can bolster this a bit. Let's see what the double limit break looks like. So great HP, pretty solid attack for a double limit break, and defense on the lower side for a double limit break. I would not recommend double limit breaking this hero necessarily, just showing you where the stats can end up based on this subpar defense that we're looking at here. The best part, all allies reflect all status effects and 115% damage back to the attacker and block other negative stacks from enemies' ice special skills for 4 turns. Not only that, but he's got a dispel. So I still use him, not in one of my best teams, but I use him always in rush attack because he's part of a kill 3 team, even though he hits more than 3. His 300% to those 3 after the other things I've done before are enough for a kill, which is good. So it's nice to have these reflect things, but again, you don't want to rely on it because if you bring him against a team with multiple blues and you're like, cool, I'm going to try to reflect this blue back, and you just don't get the reds, boom, you get blown up by those heroes. So average can be tough to work with. It doesn't mean he's not the right choice, but it's just something you need to keep in mind, that it's not any kind of guarantee, in that there's been plenty of times where I've been disappointed by not being able to charge him in time and I get killed by, blue hero or something like that. All right, lastly, we have what is probably pronounced Gaillard. Fast speed deals 540% damage to the target. All allies are immune to incoming negative effects and damage from fiends. All allies are immune to incoming effects and damage from fiends. Immune to new fiends. Interesting. He doesn't clear any fiends, but he blocks new ones and negates the effects of existing ones. So even if you don't utilize that, you have a fast speed sniper with great damage and this stone skin, which is fantastic as well. So we'll look at that in a second. Still very usable. You'd want to build him up, and again, snipers need to be in the right team. He's not just going to kill a hero at full health with no proper setup. So you got to find a way to work with him to make use of what he's doing, but that's true for most heroes. Still a consideration that needs to be made, though. And you have the potential to block fiends if you can charge him up before, which is nice. Not something that you're going to be able to use that much if you're using him primarily on offense. Fiends on defense are pretty uncommon from my experience, but there may be a time for it. And hey, if you're only using him for war and there's one war team with fiends and you use him and it works, that's fantastic. Stone Skin is one of the better things about these heroes. Every time this Gargoyle casts a special skill, their Stone Skin hardens. The next 3 times he receives damage, it's dropped to 1 and it cannot be dispelled. So great for offense because the defensive heroes don't know to aim around this. You can aim around it if you're facing a hero like this on defense. So he's not fantastic, but he's one of the better choices. Snipers, I think, are a tier below AoE heroes because they are not proportionally as strong. His damage to 1 is far less than Guardian Kong's collective damage to 3, for example. And Kong has a much better skill with that, the blue reflect. So yeah, little iffy. I would probably give the edge overall to Kong. These final 4 heroes that I've discussed being the best choices here. But again, you need to decide how many of these, how many souls you have for the soul exchange and whatnot. And yeah, that's that. I don't want to make this video too much longer, but I think I would recommend probably Kong first, based on what I discussed, Topaz second, and then Guan Yu and Gaillard in a tie for 3rd. That's what I'm thinking right now. And then of the second tier, I would probably say for most people, Sartana is going to be the best choice, especially if you have her maxed, because this gives you a new hero essentially without having to invest any ascension materials. But typically people with weaker rosters have an excess of Ascension items because they have Ascension items but no heroes, whereas other people can tend to have heroes but no Ascension items. So yeah, that's that. Let me know if you have any questions. Either myself or someone else in the comments can try to weigh in if you want any personal recommendations. Hopefully this information was helpful. I guess one thing I can say at the very end here is that I have all of these heroes. I'm not going to be taking any from this actually. And if I were to take, you know, another hero, with all that being said, I would probably take another copy of Kong, just because that blue reflect can be really good. And like one example is in Rush Attack. So I've got Marjana, Asterius, and Guardian Kong. I target a side, like say the left side is like Kalo, Ludwig, and then Alfric in the center, and the right side is the blue musketeer, I forget what her name is, something Winter. And I don't know, somebody else on the wing. I can comfortably take out the left side with those three heroes, and now I have the blue reflect where I don't need to worry about the other blue hero. So that reflect gives you some options in terms of who you have to worry about, who you have to take out first, because certain heroes you don't need to worry about anymore. And using him in, or her, I don't know if this is don't know the gender of this creature here, but using them in Rush Attack is obviously, you don't have to worry about the average speed factor. So anyways, I think that's enough of my thoughts. Probably more than some people bargain for, but that's the way I do it. So like it or hate it. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, please hit the like button and subscribe so that more people can find this video and the channel, and also just to show some support if you appreciate the content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.